Welcome to the show. I'm Riley.
I'm David.
I'm Brandon.
And today we're discussing Adam McKay's new comedy, Don't Look Up.
Don't tell me what to do.
Okay.
How dare you?
Wait. What do we do? James is in here. I get confused. We'll laugh, we'll argue, we might get a little too into it, but at the end of the day, they're just movies. Oh, spoiler's gonna come and hit us.
They're inevitable.
And now I say what we're doing next week,
Yeah.
and I think what we're doing is Licorice Pizza. Maybe.
What a name for a movie.
The movie by Paul Thomas Anderson
Pata.
and the girl from Haim.
Don't know
band.
who that is.
No idea what Haim is.
But this week is all about Don't Look Up. David, what'd you think of the movie?
Sometimes a movie captures subtle, important truths of the human experience with surgical precision. And sometimes a movie bonks you over the head with a metaphoric baseball bat while a literal billion nukes worth of explosions sear the part of your brain that grasps nuance. Don't Look Up. Don't Look Up doesn't fail to get us many points across, but wow, I've never been so frustrated watching a movie. I'm going to still give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
I hate watch this movie. It is so frustrating. The feelings that it's trying to make you feel are like so deeply uncomfortable. And I know that's the point, but man, like if I want the feelings that this movie gives me, I'll just like snap into awareness with what's going on in the world currently and suffer.
Instead of existing in this sort of like fugue state.
Yeah.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah,
I'm not
sure. Fug.
Fug?
The fuck space.
This fucking state. Yeah. It was wild. Does Brandon go last or do I go?
I think Brandon goes next.
Okay, Brandon, what
Sure.
are you?
Don't Look Up is a movie that shows you how stupid Adam McKay thinks you are
Oh.
with disconnected comedy and bad editing.
Whoa.
3 out of 10.
3 out of 10.
Brandon.
I
Damn.
hated this movie. I hate watched it just like you.
Yeah.
But I think I hated it more.
You hated it
hated this movie.
You thought it was a
and
bad
you know
film.
what's funny? I love Adam McKay. I love The Big Short.
That's
I thought
shocking.
The Big Short was one of my favorite movies
Really
of all
good.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie
Yeah, I didn't like
is
The Big Short.
literally the polar opposite of that movie. I had the exact opposite reaction watching this movie that I had watching The Big
You thought it was the polar opposite?
I mean, there's a lot, I guess, of obviously it's the same person, but stylistically, it's similar, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's much worse in execution.
I feel like
And for so many reasons, not just
Yeah.
him, so many reasons.
I feel like I understand why you feel that way, but we'll get into it.
Yeah.
So
give
this-
us your thoughts.
Yeah. Funny enough to be a comedy, yet uncomfortable and kind of meandering enough to be a documentary. It's the best of both worlds. I'm giving it a 7.75 out of 10.
Wow.
Because honestly, I was conflicted afterwards, which is always, I think, probably a good sign when I finish a movie. I'm kind of like, what did I think of that movie? Because it was very funny and it had a lot of good points to make. Some of the allegories were a bit weak, but overall, I think it had. There were parts where like I didn't expect to feel something and I did, so I was like, nice. You know, it's like it's not deceit necessarily, but it's like pleasant surprise.
Totally. I much prefer movies like this where there's moments that I actually am furious and then there's moments that I do get affected by than one of those like 6s that you just kind of coast through and you get to the end and you're like, all right, I watched that and you forget it a day later.
Yeah.
This I think is there'll be moments where I see Meryl Streep as President Trump for years to come.
A Hillary Clinton Trump mashup.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so much to dive into there. After these words from our sponsor through my mouth. They're Just Movies is supported by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, including their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. Its new wireless charging system removes the need to bring cables with you and is compatible with most Qi charging pads. The Lawnmower 4.0 includes ceramic blades with skin-safe tech, reducing nicks and cuts, and it's cordless, waterproof, and gets 90 minutes of use on a full charge. Shaving for 90 minutes? You got some work to do. Head to manscaped.com/carpool20. Yep, still carpool, and get 20% off and free shipping today. We're also brought to you by Secret Lab. Secret Lab chairs are engineered to keep you comfortable for long hours at work and play and podcasting, because we're all sitting in them right now.
Whoa.
Brandon, how do you feel?
Comfortable.
I knew it. Their Titan Evo 2022 series chair offers 4-way lumbar support, comes with a magnetic memory foam head pillow, and is offered in different upholsteries like hybrid leatherette, soft weave fabric, and Napa leather. I don't know what any of that means, but it sounds luxurious. And it feels it too. With up to 5-year extended warranty and 49-day return policies, you're covered if anything goes wrong. So learn more at Secret Lab at lmg.gg/secretlabtjm. They're just movies. And without further ado, I feel like I'm gonna remind you guys what the heck happened in this movie. That's a lot. It was dense.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I was kind of
It's
like,
a long movie though.
like, where are we?
It was so
2.5
long.
hours.
Oh,
Was it 2.5?
Yeah,
It was
220, I
so
think.
long.
218.
I'm sorry, that was 2 minutes off.
And that's and that's including the credits.
Okay, so
I
like-
was closer to 2. Take it back.
I got to like the hour 45 mark, and I'm like, there's 40 minutes left.
Oh yeah.
That happened way
God.
earlier for me.
I did like when I went to watch it, I was kind of like I because of my kid, I started watching it later than I wanted to, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna be up until like 1 a.m.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, when astronomy PhD candidate Kate Dibiaski and her professor Dr. Mindy discover a comet that will impact Earth and wipe out all life in 6 months, they meet up with Dr. Oglethorpe, the head of NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office, and present their findings to the White House, where they're blown off by President Janie Orlean and her son, Chief of Staff Jason. Oglethorpe urges the scientists to leak the news, which they do on the Daily Rip talk show, but they're once again not taken seriously and are memified on social media. When President Orlean is involved in a sex scandal, she diverts attention by publicly confirming the threat of the comet and planning a project to divert it using nuclear weapons. The mission launches, but Orlean aborts it when her campaign donor Peter Isherwell, CEO of tech giant Bash, discovers the comet holds trillions of dollars worth of rare earth elements. The White House agrees to let Bash launch a mission to break up the comet and mine it, despite none of the science having been peer-reviewed. Dibiaski is sidelined and tries unsuccessfully to mobilize public opposition to the Bash mission, while Mindy is hired as the mission's advisor/PR persona and also begins an affair with the co-host of the Daily Rip. World opinion is divided. Some want the comet destroyed, some want the jobs the comet will create, and some deny that the comet even exists. Dibiaski goes home to Illinois, works retail, and starts dating a shoplifter named Yule. Mindy's wife confronts him about his affair and returns home to Michigan, leading Mindy to rant on live television about Orlean's incompetence and humanity's indifference in the face of apocalypse. As the comet becomes visible from Earth, Mindy, Dibiaski, and Oglethorpe reconcile and organize a social media campaign to just look up, leading to a Don't Look Up counter-campaign among Orlean's supporters. When an alternative comet deflection mission by China, India, and Russia fails, the scientists realize the Earth is truly doomed. The Bash mission launches but fails, and when Orlean offers Mindy a spot on the secret evacuation ship for elites, Mindy declines, choosing to spend a final evening with his family, Dibiaski, Oglethorpe, and Yule. The comet hits and kills everyone on the planet. 22,000 years later, the spaceship from Earth lands on an alien planet, where Orlean and others awake from cryogenic sleep, only to be eaten by aliens. In a post-credit scene, did you guys see that?
Yes.
Jason emerges from the rubble, screams for his mother, and tries to post on social media. The end. It was a really great ending. I feel like
didn't even see that.
You didn't see it?
No.
Yeah.
Jason is Jonah Hill?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's he like crawls out from the NASA rubble. Like it. Yeah. I feel like that left me with a good feeling because I was like, I don't know, we're fucked.
I feel like
the posting on social media really like solidified it because I think that beyond any ideas about like politics or any of this stuff, I think that a big focus of this movie is social media and media in general, and how like humans try so hard to just distract ourselves from the hard stuff.
Yeah. What's the big thing? It's certainly like the Bash storyline, the way Bash is introduced. And it's like, Peter is like, you don't want to feel anything. We will distract you from everything.
Hey, what was that actor's name?
I don't know. He's so
his
uncomfortable.
Name is Mark Rylance.
Mark Rylance. That character. It was like, I think I was like so
it was like
taken
Elon
aback.
Musk with
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, like every tech guy
he was
in
like
one
that,
person.
but he also like he talks like this, and he's thinking about everything.
Tim Cookish.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. It's really cartoony.
The best, one of my favorite parts of the movie is in that scene when the kid is on screen and she like has a line she's supposed to deliver and she's like, "Mr. Israel, I have a question, or can I ask a question?"
Not
and he's
now.
like, "No, so I," he just like moves on,
Whatever.
and the camera stays on her face for a second, and she's just like, "What?" I was like, "Was this on purpose?"
I like some of the things they do with that character. I feel like that's one of the weaknesses of this movie. It feels like there's a few different movies happening at the same time, and he feels like he's right out of an episode of like Silicon Valley, like something more comedic.
Yeah.
And the movie's also trying to make some pretty salient, darker points.
Right.
And I found I had a hard time combining the two. And I agree with what you said in your capsule review, where it's really fucking funny. I laughed hard a few times.
Man.
But
Brandon, I feel like you were just in a bad mood.
I didn't laugh once.
Were you tired? Had you slept?
I was not that tired.
Had you eaten?
I had slept. I had eaten.
Okay.
I just didn't laugh at this movie. I didn't find it funny. I thought.
See, I feel like
What did you find funny?
some
I don't
random
know, it's hard to-
lines.
I mean,
certainly the outbursts. I think I don't love Leo DiCaprio often, but I really liked him in this movie.
I
thought
hated. I thought this was one of his worst roles ever.
Oh no,
Brandon,
I strongly
from an
disagree.
acting perspective.
before we get deeper, we need to like talk about. You need to talk about what you disliked about the movie.
Yes.
because obviously David and I found it very funny.
Yeah.
I think we've established that there's good stuff in this movie. Brandon, be the hater.
To sum up, I felt like this movie is like a culmination of Hollywood being self-righteous because it's a bunch of very top-level people. Adam McKay, this cast of actors, all very good people.
Leo DiCaprio is being
paper.
very outspoken about climate change and all
And
this.
obviously, yes, he has. And that's fine. I think most people are proponents that climate change is something that matters a lot. But to me, this movie, the opinion that this movie has on everyone in the world that's saying, okay, climate change, yes, I understand that seems stupid. But what was the goal of this movie? Was it to try to change those people's minds? Because this movie makes that worse.
I think the movie isn't just about climate change. It's kind of encapsulating all of like leftist frustration with everything. And it gets a little bit messy, but I'd say leftist frustration is messy because it's encapsulating a whole like half of the planet, not to say half planet, but a big chunk of the planet with a bunch of different views, and not everyone's aligning. So like the frustration that's real that it's trying to encapsulate is messy. And so the fact that this movie kind of misses a few times to me works alongside kind of what it's trying to do. But
See, for me, like I didn't feel like the criticism was only coming from left to right. Like I feel like it was at times quite balanced because obviously the title of the movie is "Don't Look Up," which is referring to this like supposedly right wing backlash to the left wing mantra of just look up, like this right in front of your face. But I think that it also like kind of makes fun of media in general, like the Daily Rip show. Like that's not necessarily like a left wing show. They're just kind of like pieces of shit. They're just like
passive people
it's
who
making
don't
fun of the
seem to care.
mainstream media in
Totally.
the same way that the right wing does a lot these days. I think that
I love those Daily Rip segments.
Yeah.
Like both the beginning
It's
one
so
where
cringe.
Jennifer Lawrence loses her shit, and at the end when Leo absolutely loses his shit. I thoroughly enjoyed it because I feel like what the movie does is it lets you feel what you've been feeling in real life, the frustrations and like the need to go into a fugue state or go numb, and then it kind of gives voice to to the anger and the fury that I've been feeling inside. And it usually pays it off. Like usually the people that get mad at the end are found to be right and found to be in the right. And it sort of empowers in that way, even though it's just like a fictional movie. It felt good to be like, hey, the science is true. Like you should have listened to the scientists. Oh, these people warning you, like they were correct. You should have just fucking shut up and listened.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely some bones to pick I have with the comet analogy, and we'll maybe get into those. But Brandon, I want to hear more about.
I don't like movies that take the position where the audience who doesn't agree with the point of this movie is an idiot because it doesn't help the problem that those people have a difference of opinion. It makes them hate you more.
Right.
And so if the world's supposed to unify because climate change is a huge problem that we can't stop if we don't do something about it, it doesn't help that problem because it doesn't get the people who disagree with you to change their mind or even like think about it. They'll just be more upset.
Well, I think the movie does make its point though that the only way to get your point across is with a personal relationship. Like at the beginning of the movie, they trying to tell everyone, and everyone's just like, it doesn't matter, it doesn't really exist. But when Jennifer Lawrence's character tells her boyfriend, someone she has a real relationship with, it actually gets through, and immediately he snaps into like, oh, we're so fucked. Yeah. And I think the movie does make that point where if you're trying to get to people, you need to have that personal relationship. You can't just throw the information at them. You can't just get mad at them. And so I think like you're not giving credit to the movie for trying to communicate that. Maybe you don't like that the whole movie's kind of is shouting and doing the anger thing, but
well, I'll say that like I sort of agree with you, Brandon, specifically because of the analogy that they use of the comet, because climate change is not a thing where you can see a thing approaching and it's going to destroy all of humanity. Like it's not an apt analogy because the thing is that climate change, like there's a lot of models pointing in a certain direction and like it's going to be bad and we're like it's going to affect us, but like is it going to destroy civilization? The vast majority of the science does not think that humanity is going to be, it's not an extinction level event, you know? Yeah. Things are going to suck and things are going to change, but like I don't appreciate. I didn't appreciate that it showed them to be that stupid, where literally all you have to do is look up and they wouldn't do it.
No, but like I think we're so far past the point. I don't know why you guys are defending climate change deniers. Like they've known.
I'm not.
Like think about oil companies. They've known for decades and decades and decades, and it's only when like there is no more denying it that they're like, actually, yeah, we did know, and you know, like we're gonna do something about it. Like, people know. People have known about it, and like. The movie begins, I think, where it's more realistic, where to believe the comet, you do have to trust the signs. You can't see it. And then you get to the point where like, oh, you're starting to see the signs like with your own eyes. And like, we're there, man. Like the amount of climate disasters we're getting is increasing. The world is changing. We can see climate change with our own eyes. And yet we still have people denying it. And so like, I don't think that the analogy is totally wrong. Obviously, it's not an extinction level event. And obviously, it's not as obvious as looking and seeing a comet.
Yeah.
But like, you can see it with your own eyes. And like, you like I said, you had to trust the science. You can see with your own eyes, and it's only getting more and more obvious. And so I do think that the analogy isn't. There's no such thing as a perfect analogy.
I'm not saying it's like a horrible analogy. There are obviously a lot of parallels. I'm just saying that it takes away a little bit from the movie for me because I'm like, this would be a lot stronger if it was like something that mapped more onto our current actual reality than a comet coming to destroy us all in 6 months. You know, like it's. And obviously it's an analogy. It's not going to be the exact same situation.
It's a movie.
I'm just saying that like, I feel like showing these people reacting in the way that they do to the comet and then like drawing a parallel to the way we're reacting now works in a lot of cases here, especially when it comes to like them telling the hosts on the show that like, we are all going to die and then being like, oh, sure. Okay, on to sports. You know, like I think that But I think that is a good point there, that the alarmism about climate change can also feed into a negative reaction of denial. When you're coming out there and being like, we are fucked. Yes, we're in the most prosperous era of human history, and yes, human poverty is at the lowest it's ever been, and yes, we have like great medical technology and blah blah blah, and everyone's having we're pretty good lives for the most part. But we're fucked. And it's like, okay, well, what about all this other stuff? And so it's like you get people wanting to push back on that because it's like, no, we're not fucked. We're doing great.
Yeah. Well, I think it totally is part of the experience certainly alive today is this. There's so much noise. And so you just have to ignore 90% of it, 99% of the time, where you're just like, I can't think about that. And you hear people yelling at you about climate change. And you're like, yes, that is a thing. Not thinking about that currently.
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing that I was asking during the movie is, what does the movie want people to do differently? Because yeah, sure, there's going to be climate change scenarios. You're not changing those people's minds with the content of this movie. So what else does this movie do then?
So what
is the beneficial, like actionable, useful thing?
But I think that like not all movies need an actionable event. I think sometimes a movie can be cathartic, and I think that's more the point of this movie is to be like it's not for this isn't a movie to be like, hey, climate change deniers, don't you see how wrong you are? It's a movie for people that are like, I'm so fucking fed up with this, to like release a little bit of that.
Did you find it to be cathartic though?
I felt the opposite up until the end. And I think the movie does.
When you see them all die?
Yeah, I was like, oh, thank God. Or I think I started loving the ending.
Some vengeance.
Once the probes or like the drones or whatever failed.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, thank God. like the science was right. And I loved watching everyone die. And I was like, thank God. And when they get to the planet, they get eaten. I'm like, oh, good. Thank goodness. And
David,
so that's
I
what
don't know
I
if
feel.
that's the right thing to take from it.
I hated the ending, especially
That's some literal to eat the rich
if we're gonna
energy.
skip to the ending,
I'm there,
for a
man. I'm
second.
there. What do you mean? Like, there are, like, aren't you frustrated with like the inability to get anything done like these days?
Sure, but I don't want to see I feel like seeing them die at the end was just kind of like solidifying everything's 100% fucked. The Earth is still gone. Why would I have good feelings from seeing them die as well?
Because it's a movie, and it's like there's something very millennial about it, where it's like existence is suffering, and like to watch it end is so nice, and like to be like we are better off gone. Humans are better off gone.
I think from a plot perspective, it would be weird to let them live for sure. Because it would wait a second,
worried.
they deserve to die.
There was no way it was gonna have a happy ending for sure.
Yeah. But I think I'm just I think I'm just put off a little bit by the joy in them dying. You know, it's like, yes, now it's cathartic. You know, I'm just kind of like, yeah, of course they died. They had to.
Well, I think maybe I misspoke. It's not necessarily the joy of them dying. It's the joy of them being proven right so spectacularly.
All right. Yeah.
And I think that's more fun. And it's hard because in our lifetime, we might not be proven right by like what our ideologies are or our beliefs are.
But the Brontrox will.
The Brontrox
will prove us right.
I think that's actually my problem with this movie.
That was so funny.
Because
it says you're getting killed by a Brontrox.
What's a Brontrox?
We don't know what it means.
But I think that's actually my problem with this movie is that everyone who's in it, who wrote it, who worked on it, it's like literally a movie to make themselves feel better about this situation.
Okay, so I had some complex. Your prompt earlier reminded me. I had some complex feelings at the end watching. It's like when the credits start and like it's going slow motion through the debris from Earth, kind of like floating through space and stuff. And I was kind of like, What's the point of this movie? Like, was it supposed to be saying something about like what we should do or like what, you know? And I was like, I think I'm content to experience this movie sort of as just like a statement on the state of things. Mm-hmm. It's like people don't always create. My favorite art is the stuff that is like, this is the point, you know, like think about this so that maybe you change the way that you think about a thing or like change the way that you act or whatever. But I also appreciate that there is some art that's just kind of like, hey, this is a representation of our time. This is kind of like what it feels like to exist in a, especially online sphere right now, where we're hyper-polarized. People are not opening their eyes to things that are plainly in front of them. It's super hard to have conversations. And I think I just kind of like accepted it.
I think I agree. I think this movie made me roll my eyes a whole bunch. Like sometimes you're just like they'll use a real world line that's been in the news or whatever and like kind of reappropriate it and like twist it just a little bit. But then there's times where that works for me, where it's like when Jennifer Lawrence goes home to her parents' house and like no politics talk. We're for the jobs that the comet is creating. I'm like
that it didn't necessarily. Like, it didn't kill me that they were like, we're on one side of the issue, but the fact that they said, no politics, the divisions in this country are bad enough, just like triggered me, because I was like, I hate when people, like, that's been my experience during the pandemic.
No.
My friends are anti-vaxxers, and so there have been many times that we like want to hang out, but can't. And anyways,
that sucks.
And so like my family is telling me, hey, just like, you don't talk about the
just avoid the
just like entirely. Just hang out and like, and it's like, yes, and I have been able to do that a few times, and that's been nice. But it's just like with things that like this, where it's just like a big giant thing that everybody kind of needs to parse out. It's like you can't just no politics. Like, what do you mean? That's the most important thing is like ideas and philosophy and like anyways.
Well, and it's like I think this movie does a pretty fun digs at like centrism too, where like I like the Chris Evans bit where he's got like the like arrow pointing up and down. Like, I don't want to like you don't want to like look up or down. People can do whatever they want, and it's so frustrating. Like this idea.
And then he calls the movie based on the comet thing, like a fun adventure, like a fun family fic or something.
Yeah, something like that. Because it's like I
Distraction.
can't remember what the fallacy is, but it's like the centrism fallacy, where it's like, oh, there's good on both sides or whatever, and like you have to find like the middle ground. But it's like sometimes there's just right and wrong, and I think this movie certainly doesn't find that nuance of like good on both sides of the gray zone. It's definitely a right or wrong thing.
I want to make sure that I say I don't think that. I mean, centrism. I wouldn't call it a fallacy, but you're right.
There is a name for a specific centrist fallacy. It's not all centrism falls into it, but it's the idea that like the middle ground is more correct than either side.
Right. Well, I don't think that's a fallacy necessarily.
There's literally an academic fallacy about that.
Okay,
you can look it up.
I'm gonna look it up. But I'm just saying that I feel like when I saw him, I'm like, this is sort of like what I think of as a fake centrism, where you're just kind of waffling. You're not really. You're just saying, hey, you know what? I'm not one side or the other. You know, maybe we just should all get along and not think about it. Like that to me is like a fake centrism, where the real centrism is like you listen to the people on one side and listen to their real concerns and ideas and all that stuff, and then you do the same thing on the other side, and then you're like, all right, what's the synthesis here? How can we achieve something that kind of is good for everybody?
The most basic example is always like the Nazis versus the anti-Nazis, and it's like, oh, we should. I think that the fallacy is when you listen to both sides, you're giving a platform to a side, and not every side deserves a platform.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess the fallacy you were talking about was the argument to moderation, or the false compromise?
That's it.
The fallacy that the truth is supposedly always a compromise between two opposing positions. And I'll say, yes, 100%. Sometimes, as you're saying, there's right and wrong. And there is like, okay, climate change is either happening or it's not happening. Yeah. And so it's like, yes, if you style yourself as one of these like Chris Evans centrists with the up and down arrow, you're not doing anybody any favors.
But I guess you're right. In this, centrism is good in the place when you're negotiating the specific policies, and you have to like be like, okay, we need a balance of our reactions of how we're doing to this.
Well, and it's like it's the way that Western democracies function, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were set up as a system in which opposing sides each argue for their own means or for their own desires or goals, and then you achieve a society in which most people can prosper, and maybe there are some people who are left behind, and then we try to have safety nets for those people and all this stuff. But like, if you have one side completely dominating everything, that's how you get fascism, Nazis, communism, that kind of stuff. So
I think the problem is, in our current state of affairs, is that there's other factors that have made it from two balanced sides to being like everything has kind of shifted and they're sort of on the same side,
right?
But like sort of different. But it's all power.
Yes, and this system works when you don't have people super hyper polarized.
Yes.
When you don't have communists versus fascists, then it can work. But yeah. Anyways.
Sounds like fascism.
We got on a little bit of a politics tangent here.
It's a political movie.
Brandon.
Yes.
Cinematographarily,
I hated it.
Yeah.
It visually, and you know what's funny? And this is no offense, sort of offense. Every time I've watched a movie, like I watched the whole thing, and I'm like, I hate the cinematography. I hate the editing of this movie.
Did you hate the editing in like just the drama scenes?
No, the whole all the weird cutaways. The weird cutaways,
yeah.
It felt messy, and I understand that was probably the point. Didn't land for me. Like I just thought it was bad, and
it was confusing.
And then at the end credits, when I saw the credit for the DP, it's Linus Sandgren, and I hate his cinematography.
Makes sense.
And I'm like, of course I hated the cinematography of this movie. It's Linus Sandgren. I literally every movie I've ever watched, I'm like, this cinematography is terrible. Like, oh, it's Linus Sandgren. Okay.
Yeah. I agree with. I didn't love the editing. I really didn't like those little montages where it's like trying to feels like all encompassing. Where it's like this movie is everything,
and
it's
all
the
cutaways to like the places around the world.
Yeah, I didn't really like that. Oh yeah, the little animals, and then it'll be like people riding. That stuff felt really cheesy to me. But I did like some of the edits where it's like Jennifer Lawrence pointing at people like, "You're gonna die! You're gonna die! You're gonna die!" And then it hard cuts to a planet or the comet coming.
Yeah.
And I love like this planet-sized silence that occupies like the noise you were just feeling. And I think those little moments work, and some of those hard cuts were fun. But I agree, overall the editing was just messy, and like this is not a good-looking movie.
No.
Yeah, I feel like I was kind of turned off by all the little weird cutaways in the early game.
The use of handheld was really jarring and bad.
Yeah, sometimes I
was like, why did they do that shot handheld? Like that was just, it made it worse to watch this.
I'm thinking of the shot where Leo or Mindy gets out of the car and like looks up and sees the comet, but like the camera stays in the car and the camera like shakes around as if there's an operator in the car trying to like follow him out of the car, but then
it just cuts away.
Yeah, they cut away and we see the car and there's no one in there, obviously. But it's like, why'd you film it like that?
To me, while watching this movie, it felt like half the time the goal was to jar the audience out of knowing that, just reminding you, hey, you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
You're not in an experience of any kind at all. This is just a movie, and I'm going to tell you that you're watching a movie again and again and again and again.
It
was
wasn't
horrible.
super immersive.
Like, on top of the bad cinematography, bad editing, the writing, I thought, is one of Adam McKay's worst scripts because I understand it's satire. So it's like a little bit over the top. But some of the lines that some of these people said are just so either bottom of the barrel, like this could be written by a film school graduate, or were just completely unbelievable that it was just annoying to hear because people don't speak like that in any context.
Oh, yeah? Can you think of an example?
Yeah.
Let's see.
When they're using the science jargon. Kidding.
Honestly, one of the things that bothered, and this is probably a silly gripe, but the names of the people in this movie, just like the characters.
Dibiaski?
Yule? Also, Timothée Chalamet did not deserve to be in this movie.
Wait, what do you
I liked him. I liked him.
I thought it was just a cameo at first, and I was like, what? This is ridiculous. But then he super grew on me.
Same.
I loved him by the
Literally
end.
walks up to Jennifer Lawrence and is like, "Hey, you want to hang out with us behind the?"
Yeah, she's a meme. These guys are like
Stoner.
Gen Z
Yeah.
But
stoners.
it's just like so annoying. and
What do you mean?
I liked it.
It was funny.
I hated it.
I mean,
Because, okay,
I didn't love
in what
the-
context, even though it's satire, I get it. Does someone walk up to a cashier? He's like, "Hey, you want to hang out?" And then she does. And then he jumps her.
Tries to kiss her?
Yeah, in mid-conversation.
They think
and
they're
then
gonna
she's like,
die.
"Get off." Yeah, I don't.
That was hilarious.
No, it was
that was so
awful.
funny because she said something. She just finished like saying
No,
something sort of profound.
To me, it shows that like Adam McKay doesn't give a shit about what women would actually be like in this movie.
I strongly disagree,
Brandon,
man. I don't think
what
that's
is
at
going
all the
on?
case. Like, you can, I disagree. I think that there's
Wait,
a
okay.
realistic scenario.
Well,
it's
she's-
kind of in there, and it's silly and it's dumb, but like, it's not that unbelievable.
Yeah, I didn't think that, like, I feel like if there wasn't a comet coming to destroy everyone, her actions would be super weird and kind of cringe because it's like, well, you're just like liking this guy because he's super into you or something. You're just like starved for affection or something. But like, given the fact that she has been established as like a strong character, right? She's not like I'm a girl, you know? She's like, she's a scientist. She's a PhD candidate. She like stands up for herself, you know? She's a strong character. So like the fact that she is going along with his like infatuation with her is like, she's like, why the hell not? She says repeatedly, why not? You know,
Well, she's like working in a liquor
understand the
store.
justification in the
yeah,
lines
yeah.
that
So I
she
just mean
says,
it makes
but-
sense to me. I don't know.
I think it's
buy it.
I
Also, that was
understand.
a-
Sometimes that happens to me in movies where like, even though a movie like could work, it's just, I'm just not there. And it's like everything just rings wrong. And so I can get that.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious when she just finishes saying something profound, and like there's a moment of silence, whatever, and he like puts down her, like he puts his hand on her drink and goes in for the kid. Like it's a thing that you would see. The reason why it was funny is because you see that happen in many other movies all the time, and it's just like, come here, you know, and the man like takes charge or whatever, but like he does it and she's like, ew, what? No.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
And then after a second, she's like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Like it's just,
Yeah, I didn't like him at first, but
was funny.
I feel like I got there by the end
wasn't
too. I think I liked his prayer too at the end.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that that whole sequence worked for me.
Totally.
I felt something.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't know. I'm sad you didn't like his character because I actually don't like Timothée Chalamet that much.
I really
but
don't like Timothée Chalamet.
I liked him.
I fucking love fingerling potatoes.
God.
I'm Yule, I'm Fire Puma 142 on Twitch. You
don't
game?
have a problem with him. That fucking.
That was hilarious, Brandon. What is wrong
to
with
me,
you?
that line just felt like try hard.
Yeah, it was okay. So I think one of the things we're running up against here is the fact that I feel like David and I started watching this at some point as sort of like an SNL sketch type of vibe. Yeah. And you're trying to find a film in there.
No, not necessarily. I think the success of The Big Short being like almost as bombastic as this movie was in a way, like at least trying to be.
Yeah.
It worked because you're just looking at a bunch of stockbrokers who are assholes. Whereas this movie, you're looking at a bunch of people who are supposed to be trying to like save the world, but they're also assholes. And it just isn't relatable at all.
Sort of. I mean, wait.
Look at Leonardo DiCaprio's character.
Yeah.
What is redeeming about him?
What is redeeming about him? I mean,
he's a scientist that can't manage to like get his message across, which is understandable, I guess, because it's a hard thing to get across.
Yeah.
On top of that, he then decides, okay, the dumb TV host that I don't actually respect, I'm going to cheat on my wife with her. And then I'm going to go back to my wife at the end of the movie and say, oh yeah, please forgive me. I brought groceries. That is like,
honestly,
I mean, you're
oversimplifying,
I think, what's happening. Yeah.
If they weren't going to die, she wouldn't have brought him, taken him back.
Yeah,
I think that's the problem. Like maybe that's the thing that didn't the whole comet thing didn't actually hold weight, even though I knew that world was going to end in the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there were lots of points, like right from the get-go, I think I was kind of like, when they're in the White House waiting to see the president, and they're sitting there and they're checking social media, and they're like, oh, look, Ariana Grande's character or whatever is broke up with her boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. Kid Cudi's character, which is like funny cameos. But they're just like, they know they're going to die in 6 months, and they're just like chilling there being like, oh, look at this. I feel like right from that point, I was like, okay, this is the vibe.
Yeah.
We are sort of in denial about the fact that like we are probably all going to die. And then things like later on, it just became more and more apparent that like, this is failing, this is failing, this is failing. This is actually going to happen. I feel like the sense of dread crept up the entire movie. So by the end of the movie, when he shows up at their door, I'm just like, this is nothing resembling a normal relationship dynamic. This is nothing resembling like a marriage that was torn apart by infidelity. It's just like, hey, we're humans, we made mistakes, and it's all about to not matter at all in a few hours. Let's just have a nice dinner.
And I think the movie's trying to make a point of like, what are the things that matter in the end? What's important? And it's that time together, the love they share, the holding the hands. That I don't think that they're trying to be like Leo is a good character, or like redeemable.
Yeah, no, he's flawed. Yeah.
And I think the movie to me did an effective job of bringing him from like the poor communicating scientist to a man being caught up in the moment and feeling his fame, and even how he almost turns and he's going along with the plan to mine the thing, because like, what else is he supposed to do? And I see how he got there, and that worked for me.
I feel like, and the fact that he cheated makes total sense with his characterization as someone who is like racked by anxiety and depression and stuff, and then suddenly he becomes like a sex symbol, and he's like boosted with confidence like crazy, and he gets attention from this like attractive woman, and he's like, oh my god, he's just like this is a classic story. Like people get steamrolled by circumstances that they weren't prepared for. And so then he makes a bunch of mistakes, but because he is deep down, he is a scientist and he cares about truth and he cares about his family, he brings it back. So like, what's redeeming about him? I mean, he redeems himself. He makes the right choice. And maybe it's because of the comet, but like, sure. I just mean that, that I wouldn't say that the good characters, like the scientists and stuff, like they're not assholes per se, and particularly especially
Jennifer
in the
Lawrence
same way.
Is, I think, the only one I wouldn't quantify that way. Her character.
Oglethorpe? He didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two are fine.
Yule did nothing wrong except shoplift.
Except for being annoying.
Punishable by death. What do you? I want to talk a little bit about the presidential office, like the characters that occupy it.
Streep.
I think it's
and Jared Kushner.
Yeah.
Straight up.
I think Meryl Streep does an okay performance. I didn't think it was particularly like special.
I personally think Meryl Streep is overrated. A little bit.
Okay, this is an SNL skit, guys.
Brandon's in a mood.
Adam McKay wrote for SNL. They had a bunch of improv in this movie. This is like a long mockumentary SNL skit, basically.
Yeah.
Again,
with deeper themes.
like
Like I look at Meryl Streep
Riley.
and I'm like, Meryl Streep is like has won multiple Oscars or whatever. She's like one of the greatest actors of our generation. But in this,
Supposedly.
she's just kind of phoning it in because it's a skit,
No.
and that's fine.
okay.
She's being Trump. I think one thing that I talked to my parents about it because they watched it and they were like, you know, some of the things that like the president said and like were a little unbelievable because I'm like, oh, with the president, and I'm like, honestly, I don't know because after Trump, the standards are completely
I
changed.
didn't have any issue with the believability of what she said.
Okay.
I just didn't find it funny.
Oh yeah, that's.
She
I mean,
wasn't.
that's
She wasn't super funny.
I think I got a couple laughs from her. I like the talk when they're like, well, like, is this the right time to bring out this story? Like they're like kind of discussing the, well, in a couple weeks we got the midterms. Like we can't. Sorry, this is like the politics. It's not in the cards right now. That stuff. It's like
All that was
again,
believable.
it's so frustrating, and I found like that was one of those hate watch moments where I was like, fuck you, just fuck you, movie. But I'm like, fuck, I hate that this does happen.
Yeah.
And I think the funny bits with Jonah Hill, like when Leo can't communicate, and he's like, your breathing stressed me out right now. I love that. I think they do a few too many of the like he's just done coke like nose grabbings, and I was like, do it once.
Yeah,
I think they did it twice
sure.
or 3 times.
Oh
But
man,
it made me laugh.
when he calls her boy with dragon tattoo. He's like, oh, calm down, man. And then like they finish the meeting and he's like, thanks for dressing up. She's just wearing like a bomber jacket or something.
Yeah. What do you guys think of those like slow-mo close-ups of her bling? Like when she's talking, it'll be like a close-up of her watch or her ring.
I didn't
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I didn't like that either. I was like, I get it.
So like, I will say, I agree with you there, Brandon, that like a lot of the cinematography rubbed me the wrong way where I was like, do we need this shot there? And then it's like, I think the shot is important. So then I'm trying to think about the shot and it's like, really, it was just kind of like a background thing, like a close up on a painting or whatever.
I think that the cinematography did a disservice to this movie because it was distracting,
I
which
think
is
so.
not the point of cinematography.
Yes, I agree.
It should not be distracting.
I will say what I did appreciate about it though was while it is disorienting in the beginning, around the halfway mark and kind of into the like 3/4 end, it picks up. So like they start doing longer and quicker montages of like random things from around the world and stuff. And at the end of the movie, during the climax of the movie, before the comet hits, they're like, it's just like a long sequence of that stuff. And it's just like, do. And it's like giving a snapshot of all this like life at different places on Earth and different people. And I feel like it kind of gave me like an impressionistic understanding of like, look at all of this stuff, all this human culture, civilization, society. It's about to be destroyed forever.
That's honestly probably why I didn't like the dinner scene as much as I probably could have, because I thought that the split that they had with that made it land less. Like you said, you liked his speech. I think that didn't land for me as much because of how distracting it was. Because blah blah blah, and they're going back and forth so quickly that's like I'm not even really absorbing any of the moments that are happening in this dinner.
Which speech?
The prayer.
Oh, the prayer. Yeah.
Timothy Chalamet did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it just didn't land for me for that reason. I thought the messiness of, and I think that's my biggest thing from a technical perspective is I really don't like the edit of this movie because it just took me out. It made it hard for me to focus. It made it hard for me to absorb, and I found it like just one of the worst edited movies I've seen in a long time.
And you know what, Brandon? Those feelings are valid. They're not right, but they're valid.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No, I think like at the end, I think the part of the reason that prayer worked for me was because it was kind of unexpected. It was kind of like not the usual vibe. I think it was kind of leading up to that point because they were like, hey, we're going to have this nice dinner. And then like we're having this like nice moments and stuff. And, you know, there's scientists obviously. And there's like the part earlier where she's like, you believe in God? Oh, that's cute. But then at the end of the time, at the end, when they're like, we're going to die, like, let's just get some peace however we can, you know? And this is what humans do, right? When in the face of the unknown, we turn to the unknown and we're like, well, it's a mystery. And maybe we just kind of reach out to whatever force we may think exists or whatever, you know? I think it was just kind of like a nice little unexpected like moment of sincerity in a movie full of cynicism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Now he's changing his mind.
9 out of 10.
I'm just kidding.
I like to, in the dinner scene, after they finish the prayer, everyone's like, oh, that's so nice. And then they kind of try and keep the conversation going, but the whole world is rumbling. And you can see their discomfort and they're like, we're gonna die, but they're like just keeping the conversation so light and all this stuff. And then I really like the slow motion shots where like you see Oglethorpe and then like the house crumbling behind him, and then it cuts to Jennifer Lawrence and the house crumbling behind her.
Yeah.
And I felt some kind of emotion there. Same with like the indigenous person. I'm not sure where that was from, but they're dancing and there's all the comets finding behind them. And I was like, there's like it's such a striking shot. I just like felt emotion, which is nice. I don't feel emotion often anymore. I'm so dead. And so I appreciated that.
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest problem in general with this movie is that most of these people in the movie, there was nothing I connected with for the most part.
I will say that
actions, their logic, their view on the world didn't connect with it.
See, I will say that that is one of the weaknesses of the movie to me, that we don't really stick with one protagonist so much throughout the movie. Like we kind of jump around to different people, and that's what made it feel a bit more like a documentary to me. It definitely is lacking a bit of like the protagonist going through a journey structure a bit.
Yeah. Well, Adam McKay even said that he wanted to ditch the 3-act structure for this movie, and that I think explains also the really weird editing choices.
I don't think he did ditch the 3-act structure though.
I don't think he was fully able to, but like he tried. He
Yeah,
said.
fair,
So,
fair.
yeah.
I don't know why you would want to. I feel like that's you want that.
I think in his mind he's turning it on. And again, that's the thing too that I didn't like is I felt Adam McKay's ego in this movie.
Yeah, that's
because
fair.
Again,
See, I
when
felt
you
that more in
have
Big
the
Short. I
world-
hated Big Short.
Really.
I mean, it was just like, I don't know if I hated it as much as I like
I
didn't
thought-
get it. So then I was like confused most of the movie
You
about
didn't
what was
get
actually.
it. What didn't you get?
I don't know how the finance system
But
works.
I think that's the one thing that he did well in that movie is he actually explained it in a manageable way, and it was fun. But
Yeah, and there were funny parts. I feel like for The Big Short, I was just kind of like, what the hell's happening? And then it was over. You know?
to me, The Big Short's like a refined version of what he tried to do here, and this movie's just worse.
When I think a big element that works in The Big Short is that it is teaching you something, and there's like an element of like, education here. And I feel like this movie spoke down to me like it was educating me, but I'm like, dude, I know this.
Yeah,
I
you
get
either
this.
know this or you disagree because he's looking down on you. And when you look
Exactly.
down on somebody, they're not going to agree with you more.
And so
That was such a weird moment when like there's a whole Don't Look Up campaign, and then they're at a rally, and the one guy
looks up
and he's like, hey, they lied to us. And I was like,
it was a little silly.
right.
I was glad for the.
You're telling me all these people were still going along with this just because they literally didn't look up in the sky? Like I thought
Well,
it was
I
more
think-
of like a thematic thing. Like,
I think though, to me, tying it to the climate change thing, it's like it's about how you can see if you choose to see, but you can also be like, oh, it's just like another star. It is whatever, and it's like the kind of where we are now, where it's like you can look around and not see climate change, or you can look around and see climate change. Like it's really the lens you're putting on your eyes.
and I think you were right when you said earlier in the podcast that you will not change people's minds through argument the vast majority of the time. Like it's about knowing somebody and kind of like doing like a slow sort of like working through issues together and stuff and empathizing and all this stuff. I think that like seeing other people argue about it can be useful because then you see all the points laid out and you don't have an actual skin in the game. Like you're not being attacked yourself, but like I feel like I don't know why I talked about
I mean, to your point on if the movie tried to tell you that you need a personal relationship to convince you or be more convincing in your life, I think if that was anything it tried to do, it didn't do it well enough.
Oh, yeah,
because
no,
it didn't
sure.
land as a heavy enough like logical theme or anything in the movie. And honestly, that concept I can get behind. If they explored that more, then great, but they didn't.
I think for me, it did land, especially because like the sweetest moment of the movie is family time together, and they're not trying to convince each other of anything, but I think like that's the emotional core of this movie is that moment. So I think the movie for me got there. I think what this movie fails to do in a real way is good sci-fi allows you to remove yourself from a situation enough that you can examine a real life, real human experience in a new way. And this movie doesn't remove you enough from real life. It's so close to real life that there's no level of separation where you can become more objective about something you're experiencing.
I mean, I think another failing of it is that even at 2.5 hours, right? 2.5 hours long. I think that's my problem with the dinner scene is that it didn't really spend enough time, in my opinion, redeeming DiCaprio's character. I get it. The world's ending, so he decides, okay, I'm going to go to my family and we'll just deal with this together one last time. That's fine. I understand the logic of that, but there was no time spent on, DiCaprio's character even like coming to that realization that he could change. Like there's
I feel like him
he goes
just
from
showing
cheating
up.
he goes from cheating on his wife. She confronts him, and then not very long after, he's like, okay, hey, dinner time.
Okay, but wait, I feel like you're characterizing it as him showing up at home being like, everything's fine. I feel like the very fact that he is showing up at home with groceries with these last people and like they're all about to die and the only thing that he wanted to do was have a nice dinner with his family and reunite with his wife. Like I feel like that is enough of a admission of wrongdoing and guilt. Like him showing up and being there is him saying, I can't apologize enough for what I did. I'm back. This is me on my knees, basically.
I can understand how you can get that take. I just didn't connect with that.
That's fair.
I have hit picks and nitpicks.
Yes.
A hit pick when I talked about it a little bit, but when she tells the boyfriend and he freaks out, how much he freaks out about the planet ending, and then he goes and sells the story of like I fucked the person who freaked out.
Yeah, that crazy girl, the crazy girl meme. I slept with her.
That killed me.
Yeah, and she's like, on top of all of this, my boyfriend just broke up with me in the worst way.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was cringe, dude.
Another hit pick, rooftop orgy, always a good time.
Yeah, we had to have that.
Yeah,
of course.
it was like, of course. I even like the scene after when Kate Blanchett and Tyler Perry. I was just at the bar and it's like clearly everyone's just gone and ransacked all the booze and stuff. And he's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to like drink? You want to fuck? You want to talk? Like, I don't know. I don't want to drink. And I'm like, yeah, at some point you would just be done.
Well, she was like, I'd rather just talk shit about people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that too.
Which is like, of course.
That's what yeah.
She was just like a non-human of a person. Just like she's like, oh, we should probably get to know each other. And she like tells about her background and stuff. And then he says stuff about his and she's just like, okay, well, that's done. Where should we go for dinner?
I think I was reading that she was based on like a Fox News anchor that also has like a master's degree and has has pointed out things and pretended she doesn't understand things on air for the sake of it.
Oh, what's her name?
That's who she was trying to be.
Who's the one that left? They made a
Tommy
movie
Lauren?
about
No.
her.
I can't remember her
like
name.
Fox? No.
Oh,
Jeff Foxworthy.
No.
No, that's the Fox movie. That the one like the bombshells or whatever. Is that what it's called?
She's one of those.
It wasn't her, but somebody else. What's her name though?
Bombshell.
We shouldn't spend time on this.
I'm good.
Anyways, yeah, she was cringe and her fake teeth were great.
What do you think of
I think they were fake teeth.
They're very white. Yes.
Yeah, she did not look like Kate. She barely looked like
did
Kate
barely
Blanchett.
look like Kate
Yeah.
Blanchett.
Yeah. And the way they did her makeup made her lips look weird.
Yeah.
Buddy.
Yeah.
Same with the fake teeth on the CEO dude. It wasn't as bad, but it was weird. It was distracting.
Yeah. Well, and that's, but I feel like that just kind of contributed more to me being like, this is an SNL skit. And then I stopped taking it like, I feel like in the early game, you expect it to be, in the early parts of this movie, you expect it to be more of like a dramedy, like a comedy drama.
Well, when they discover the meteor and they're like figuring out and like Leo's like, everybody go home right now.
Yeah.
And like, you're like, oh, this is really serious.
Yeah. It has that vibe for sure. And like, I feel like that's more of like a Big Short style vibe.
Which I like more.
Yeah. But then it becomes, I feel like as soon as you meet
the president.
It might be the social media when they're checking social media. And it's kind of like inkling of it. And then when they meet the president and it's like Meryl Streep being like a mix of Hillary Clinton and Trump and Jonah Hill being Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay, this is a skit. This is like a low stakes comedy film.
Yeah, I think that was the point too where my anxiety became too much that I had to like start doing stuff with my hands. So I went and like got stuff and started like peeling stickers off boxes and stuff. Yeah.
What?
Oh, just because like I'm like collecting retro games and so I buy games and they have like sometimes stickers on them. So I just like had to 3/4 pay attention. I needed something to do and I was like, okay, this movie isn't good enough that I have to like pay attention every second. I can kind of like zone
I
in
see
and
what
out.
you're saying. Sorry, I thought you were saying that like that became anxiety inducing when it was like more of a skit, and I was like,
no,
oh,
I just like my anxiety had built up at that point, and I was frustrated, and I had all the negative emotions built up, and I'm like, I need some kind of outlet for something.
Yeah.
And then that was the point where I was like, okay, this movie isn't good enough that I'm allowed to.
Yeah, I don't need to like pay
look
attention
at every
to
frame,
each cutaway, and think about whether it's significant or whatever.
Totally.
Yeah, I felt the same way,
Yeah.
but Brandon did not.
I just felt frustrated
Totally. No, I get that.
the entire time.
Oh man.
Because I think my main, like, I think to go back to my other points, like, I think the biggest problem I have with this movie is it could have been something that maybe benefited climate change more than it did. but it just isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that, and that's kind of what I was thinking at the end there, right? Where like, maybe there's a duty if you are this like embedded in everything. Like maybe there's a duty for you to do something that you think is actually going to sway people, but at the same time, I don't know. I think that there is a place for, like I said, art that just kind of like encapsulates the vibe, you know?
I understand that. But I think the way that I've seen, like, I mean, this is outside of the movie, so not necessarily the film's fault per se, but all the interviews I've watched of the actors about this movie or like talking about it, or even Adam McKay talking about it, it feels like they feel like the movie is going to have such an impact on the idea of climate change.
That's dumb.
That to me is so stupid.
I totally get what you're talking about with the Hollywood
it's self-righteous
masturbatory thing going on.
It's like a circle jerk.
They will do stuff like this, and like the left and extreme left will do stuff like this, and the right will do this too, where like they make something that they think is funny and that they think it like makes some really, really good points, and it's almost like, we got some hits in, now the other side is gonna feel worse.
So impactful.
Yeah, but really it's like, no, this isn't gonna change anyone's mind. You're just like making yourself feel better about your position that you already have.
And that is exactly why I hate this movie.
Yeah, and so I don't like. I feel like there's an element of that there. I don't hate it. I think it's just kind of like, I feel like it does give voice to the frustration and this sort of like existential dread that everyone's feeling about like the world right now. Like I come up against this in my writing on TechLinked all the time, because I'll try to come up with jokes with something about a story, and I'm like, my mind is immediately going to a like fatalistic joke where it's like hey, this thing is coming, this cool thing is coming, but it's not gonna matter because the earth is dying and blah blah blah.
As a vehicle to make environmental scientists maybe feel a little bit better or about their experience in the world, I can kind of understand that. But it to me feels like a missed opportunity of something that could be something. Because like, I mean, I look at The Big Short and I thought, if you watch that movie, it's like, well, you understand how bad the financial housing crisis in the U.S. was. You have a concept of what that is.
Yeah.
Where with this, the impact on the idea of climate change, how it impacts the world, what you could do about, like, all those things are completely missed, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because it's just so in its own ego as a movie.
I mean, you know what? I will say that, like, while this movie is unlikely, in my opinion, to like directly change anyone's mind, I do feel like there's a space for movies like this to lambaste a certain group and kind of like plant a little seed that makes people maybe think differently a little bit about it. Like, I don't think that any climate change denier is going to watch this movie and be like, I guess I should care about climate change,
absolutely.
you know? But I think that it might do something. Like the example from my childhood that I'm thinking of is, what's the movie called? I think it's called Saved, where...
That's the Christian one?
Yeah.
I think the Christian high school, yeah.
Who's the actress? I need to know. It's from the Walk to Remember.
Macaulay is in it.
Mandy Moore.
Oh, she's the evil one.
Is she?
She's the villain.
Yeah, sure. I know, that's the only one. Oh, and Macaulay Culkin's in it too. Yeah. So like, I grew up in a Christian, I was brought up Christian, and I feel like that movie, you know, obviously I watched it and it wasn't like everything you know is false, but it was like, I saw some of the criticisms of like the fake, you know, hand up, I'm worshiping and whatever. And I'm like, you know what? That's valid. That is true to my experience. So like, even if it didn't like atheist me, it still kind of like made me think about things a little more critically and like brought me to a bit more of a middle position, you know?
I mean, again, I even not to have the point of changing anybody's mind, I think that the film is so self-righteous in its message and how stupid it thinks you are as a viewer for the people who have that opinion, that they're just going to not have that critical thinking thought. Like, I've never watched Save, so maybe it had a slightly more subtle approach, but because of how unsubtle the approach of this movie... It was pretty
similar to this one, where it was like a comedy, and it was like
the youth pastor comes out and he's like, don't you love Jesus?
Yeah, it was very like SNL skit, scathing comedy.
I don't know. Maybe for some people that works. Just...
I think, I feel like
a seed, planting a seed.
Yeah, I feel like there's just like a frame, like a mental frame in which you went into. I feel like you went into this movie with like expectation for a certain thing, and it was not that. It's like, this isn't a movie that's trying to. I think like with those interviews that you saw, it sounds like they were trying to sell it like it was something that's supposed to change your mind, and it's like that's not what it is. It's just like everything fucking sucks. Everyone's fucking stupid, and let's just like get our frustrations out. And that's what I feel like the movie succeeded for me. If I had gone in and I was like, man, they're really trying to make some salient points about climate change and like, wow, how we need to communicate. It's like, no. This is, like you said, it's an SNL skit of a bunch of lefty people being fucking pissed off. That's what it is.
Yeah. I feel like letting Leo DiCaprio kind of do all these interviews where he's like, it's really about climate change. We're really trying to make an impact. blah, blah, blah. It was a mistake because it's like, no, it's not about that. It's about you like jerking yourself off about the fact that you were right about.
For sure.
Yeah.
I do love the scene when he finally breaks down on the show and he like has his full like,
oh,
we're fucking done.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Our lead is lied to you.
I felt things. I actually felt things there because like we can't even talk to each other. What is wrong with us? And he's just like losing his shit. And I'm just like, yes, we need people doing this, you know? Because I feel like people just like are going through the motions. They got their head down, looking at their phone, scrolling, blah, blah, blah. And they only see what they want to see because they're bubbles. And then there's this moment in the movie where it's just like, hey, wake up! What's wrong with you? You're being crazy.
I do like that moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other quote is like, when they're on the talk show, maybe the destruction of the entire planet isn't supposed to be fun. Maybe it's supposed to be terrifying. Maybe we should all be scared. You know,
that's Jennifer Lawrence's character that says that one.
Yeah, that's the first one.
I like that. When the world's not ready to hear it at all.
Yeah,
buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Minor visual hit pick is when one of the cutaways to Leo on the screen. I think it's like one of the Sesame Street ones. Yeah, separate one. I love when the doll's like, is the planet going to come kill us? And he's like, yes, the meteor is going to kill us. And the puppet's just like, what? And they like kind of start freaking out.
And he walks up to the camera lens.
Yeah, I like that.
That was improv apparently.
Really? Oh, I like that. Yeah. But I like before that, there's more of a calm one where he's reassuring people. And the way they frame the TV, it's surrounded by wood and it almost looks like an old timey TV, like a 60s or 70s TV. Mm-hmm. And I think that was an intentional choice to kind of like convey comfort or like familiarity in a way,
right?
Like the 60s kind of political messages did. And I like that little touch.
Yeah, those like it seemed dystopian at times.
Totally.
In that sense, where it's just like the government is telling you, everything's gonna be okay. Yeah. Like they said that. I think that commercial is where the woman's like, "What do I do?" And it's like, call our hotline and they'll make you feel better.
Yeah.
It's like, One thing I'm super confused about though is the fact that the slogan is "Don't look up," but the president announced the mission, and like everyone knows about the Bash mission. It's like they know that the comet is coming because we're launching a mission to mine it.
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know how.
But it's like, don't look up to see the comet.
The dichotomy of it.
Yeah, that's strange.
But that's why I thought it was more of like a kind of a general like, oh, they want us to do this thing, even if it is something that is somewhat reasonable. The fact that they're telling us to do it means that we're not going to do it. Yeah. You know. Anyways, that was just confusing.
What did you guys think? Like, this is a mid pick. That song. I feel like it switched what it was halfway through.
Yeah, like, so apparently that was also improv.
Oh.
I watched an interview with Adam McKay where he talked about improv. Well, they didn't improv it like on set, obviously, but like when they were recording the song, Ariana Grande just started kind of putting in these lyrics like turn off the shitbox news and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, this is great. Yeah, just go with that.
Oh, yeah, you're referring to her performance that like went on for like 3 minutes?
Yeah, I didn't hate the performance, but it felt weird to me that the first half, it was kind of making fun of Hollywood masturbatory stuff, where it was like, it was about her breakup and this, but it was like kind of framed around the political thing. So it was like, clearly this is stupid. And then Kid Cudi has his verse, but then it comes back to her, and then it's
what
clearly
he's really trying to say.
Yeah. But then it comes clearly about like the actual like political message of the movie, and I found it kind of jarring and weird and clunky and clumsy.
Yeah. I
way
feel like
making Ariana Grande not look like a bitch in the movie.
Well, I think that I mean,
her redeeming scene where she gets to perform for 3 minutes.
I think that it was clear her politics are left, you know, but like she was obviously a weirdo. Well, she tells them to fuck off or whatever because he says like, I'm sorry about your breakup or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the only time where she really seems like a bitch.
Yeah, but she doesn't have a lot of screen time outside of that. There's that in the performance, right?
I feel like that the song was, if I still had some inkling in my mind that this was going to be some sort of like a film and less of a skit, that switched it off because I was like, oh, this is straight up. This could literally be an SNL thing.
And like you said, now the knowing that it's like it was improv in the booth, it's like, of course it was.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Because she's like, turn off the shitbox news and do shit. Like the lyrics stop seeming like lyrics and more just kind of like things. Yeah, talking to the music. The song was kind of catchy though.
Yeah. Don't look up.
Don't look up.
Oh yeah. And then my last like mid pick is Ron Perlman.
I was about to bring up Ron Perlman.
Yeah, I don't know.
Benedict Drask.
Yeah, I got
what is with Adam McKay and the names?
I hate the names in this movie. It's a stupid.
They're like Dune names.
Well, like Dr. Mindy,
DJ Cello.
I'm just getting like
Cello.
I think I was confused for like the first few times they said his name because I was like, "Who's Mindy?"
I thought it was Jennifer Lawrence for the start.
I thought it was like a female first name.
Every name in this movie is annoying.
Kate Dibiasky, President Orlean,
Jason Orlean,
and then Kate Blanchett's character is Brie Evante.
Ew.
Oglethorpe. Is that? I've never heard that name.
I've heard
before.
Oglethorpe.
Yeah. Isherwell. There are some weird names in this movie.
I wonder if it's like people he knew in his life or something, and he just steals a name.
I don't think so. I think
I feel like he just comes up with. He's like,
he's
got one of
they
those.
feel made up. I think maybe that's the problem that I have with them. Is most of these names feel made up. They don't
sound
feel
like they came out of
names at all.
A Star Wars name generator.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, Ron Perlman. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how I feel. How did you guys feel about? Was it too much? Was it dumb? Was it funny?
Fun. I thought he was like.
I liked him yelling at the kids. I
didn't
thought that was
believe
funny.
that he was.
I disliked him less than most characters in this movie.
Yeah.
He was like
super funny.
What was he going
on
about in the spaceship? That was like very like.
That was fucking funny.
Yes, I wanted to bring
I can't even remember what he said.
That was one of my hit picks. He's
that
like,
was bad.
"Oh, look at that beautiful blue ball down there. A lot of white folks working hard down there." And people are like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "You know what? Shout out to the Indians too."
Oh,
he's like, "Shout out to the Indians, both kinds, the ones that ride on elephants and the ones with the bow and arrows. Why haven't they teamed up?"
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think that's the only time I almost laughed.
That was funny. And then he starts about like he's like, "Oh, and the gays,"
and then
too.
He
gets cut off. Oh, that was fucking.
That was
funny.
hilarious.
Oh man.
Oh, yeah. And then at the end when he's like shooting his guns at the comet,
you won't take me alive.
Like, yep, that's the idea. I thought it was funny that they have the press conference announcing the mission on a battleship. Of course they do.
Oh my god, yeah.
That was so funny.
Yeah, I did like that. I find that's like a subtle thing of like how White House addresses have gotten so different, where it's like as of the drama of it, where you compare it to like that it's like in front of that blue curtain or whatever normally, but it's like in this world, it's almost like Idiocracy, where it's like you need to have like fire. There was literal fireworks at some point. Yeah,
yeah. When they shoot fireworks on the battleship.
I think for me, this movie struggled a little bit with this tone overall. I think that's if they could have adjusted the tone a little bit and it was full comedy, I think it could have like landed even harder. But because, like you said, they were going for like the little bit of the self-righteous thing, it just turns it a little bit less and made it just a little bit less enjoyable overall.
Yeah, I mean, I that's why I'm giving it. You know, I'm not giving it an 8 or a 9. I think I would like. I kind of wanted to give it an 8, but then I was like, no, there's a bunch of weaknesses here for sure, and so I 7.75. But I think that it's still like I had a good time watching it. I laughed a lot, and it made me think, and it made me feel, and I'm like, well, you know, this is a good movie. It's a good movie in my book, even if it's like it's kind of awkward and stumbles around a little bit. But
I wish I felt any of those things. I wanted to.
You know what? It's like a. I feel like you need to be in the mindset.
Yeah.
What's the mindset?
I feel like you just
had
did
an
this
authentic
wrong,
reaction.
Brandon. I'm just kidding. But
I had an authentic reaction to this
But
movie.
sometimes I sit down to watch a movie and I'm like, this is gonna make me think. You know, this is like gonna be philosophically dense or whatever.
I was completely open-minded in this movie. I had a lot of hope for this movie. I saw the cast. I thought I like Adam McKay.
But you sat down looking for a comedy?
No, I just sat down looking for something that I would enjoy on any level.
I feel like if you were like, this is another movie by the guy who did Step Brothers.
But that's the thing that made The Big Short so great is he did Step Brothers, then made The Big Short, and I'm like, The Big Short from a drama aspect has so many redeeming qualities, and this movie just doesn't.
That's funny. I feel like this was like a mix of Step Brother and Big Short.
Yeah. And I don't think it worked.
Okay. Well, you're wrong, but
we disagree, Riley.
Yeah, no, and that's fine. What we're healing the divide. This is one thing I wrote down was like, this is how you do meta after watching Matrix Resurrections. There's just a moment where in the beginning they're like, oh, we're gonna patch you through to so-and-so Oglethorpe from the Planetary Defense Coordination Office, and Kate is like, is that a real place? And text comes up, it's like,
oh yeah,
it is a real place. So this is their badge.
I like that.
I'm like, this is how you do meta, you know? Like, instead of like having the Matrix Resurrections, the whole movie was like,
talking about,
let's talk for a long time about the Matrix, the movie, basically, but as a video game. Wait, spoilers?
I mean, I haven't watched it yet, but I also don't really know the universe at all. So
okay, well, that isn't like huge spoilers for the whole movie. But anyways, I appreciated them doing meta in this way, where it's just like point to like talk directly to the audience and say that you, the filmmakers, know, but then go on with the movie. You know, like
I almost wish there was more of that though, because it's like I wrote that down that moment. I was like, I like this, but I kind of wanted more addresses to the audience because the movie is so drawing awareness to itself. I think they could have gotten away with more.
And like that's the thing I liked about The Big Short is he has those moments where he cuts away to like Margot Robbie explaining stocks,
right,
or like the housing crisis to you in different ways, and he did that with Anthony Bourdain. Like those parts of those movies, it was one of the most enjoyable parts of The Big Short, and he didn't go that far in this.
See,
movie.
I didn't like that.
Oh, I liked them.
I
thought
like
they were
those parts
creative
because I don't like when that to me is again the wrong type of meta, where you're placing breaking the fourth wall. You're doing it multiple times with different characters, and they're all breaking the fourth wall, talking directly to the audience, and then that's just like, okay, that takes me out of it because I'm like, wait, what is this? I'm just like watching a play.
But it takes
like,
me out of it in a practical way because they're actually explaining something and making it easy to understand. Like that's the part that I thought he was successful with when he was explaining that stuff in The Big Short.
I guess so, but then I'm just like, why don't you just make a documentary?
Because he's a narrative filmmaker.
And no one would have watched it.
Well,
yeah.
Didn't do narrative the way you wanted it. This one.
No, he didn't.
The title card when it comes up.
Oh yeah.
I laughed out loud because they're waiting to see the president, and Kate like vomits into the garbage can.
And it hard cuts, right?
And then just like in the middle, it's a blurry still frame, and it's just like, and the music hits, and it's like, don't look up. And I was like, ah.
I got a good laugh too from the guy selling them, the general selling them the snacks.
$20.
Yeah.
I feel like that was kind of a failed joke a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like when
They
it first
come back
happened,
to what, 3 times?
Yeah, it's a bit too many
The
times.
first time was kind of funny because it's like, hey, he charged us for the snacks.
Why did he do that?
the
Was it
hell?
a power move?
But I feel like Jennifer Lawrence kind of like can be really on and off with comedy, where like she just didn't sell the joke to me. I feel like
Yeah, I think the joke should have ended
Her
at
delivery or
the
something.
kitchen when she realized it. She should just been like, "What the fuck?" And then it card
I
cuts
like that she
to
I like she
tell
comes
them?
back
Okay.
and tells them, but then they come back to it 3 times.
And then they also
Or 2 times.
like even like the subtle nod to it after when Jonah Hill throws them the snacks. It's like it's the same snacks. Like okay, I guess like we're being reminded of this joke that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the overall tone that I got from the actors in this movie, and maybe it's partially because of the writing, is they felt disconnected. Because like the fact that like you just said, the Jennifer Lawrence thing, like in her comedy not really landing, I think that to me, that just is like a disconnected approach.
Yeah. No,
And
I
so-
mean, she was
Because
probably
if you're a connected person and wholeheartedly in your approach to acting, then you won't have those missed moments in comedy because it would just land because you're
Yeah.
a connected person.
I think that she did a really, really good job on the non-comedic parts. so
yeah,
much.
absolutely. And that's where she shines. But she just doesn't really have
Although
that
the
full
Timothy
range.
Chalamet kiss was still probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. But there are times when like it's a funny scene and other people are being funny, and then she has a line and you can tell it's supposed to be funny, but it's not really funny. But like I think Jennifer Lawrence is a great actress, but
I think she can be a great actress.
Yeah. But I think that she was kind of misused a little bit in this movie. Although I did believe that she was the character.
And the funny thing is, to me,
Yeah.
Adam McKay says he wrote this role, almost wrote this movie for her. Like he actually said that in a Variety thing.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, really? Because she didn't shine in this movie the way that she maybe usually.
I don't know.
She wasn't bad
I thought she was
by
pretty
comparison.
good.
Yeah.
I mostly wrote positive things in my notes about her. And I think like having like a couple missed jokes doesn't necessarily mean that her performance is disconnected. It just means that like she's not a comedian. And so like they didn't get the takes, they didn't get the right edit in. I think like comedy is a lot of an editor's job too, to pull out the moments and the
Not a good
timings,
edit.
and it's a bad edit. So I think like I would blame the editor
it might not
more,
be her
yeah.
fault. You might be completely right about that.
So
Yeah,
tough.
I mean, it's a really small nitpick on my part about the comedy thing. Like, I feel like overall she was really great in the movie.
totally.
I've just one more hip pick about the like a great line when Jason is saying, "Hey, I've been hearing a lot of people pray for people, and that's tight. But I just want to put a prayer out for stuff. Like there's a lot of cool stuff in the world, like watches and cars and clothes, and like I'm just gonna what do you say? I'm gonna say a prayer for that. I'm gonna say a prayer for stuff. Amen." That's it.
I love.
Oh, you're so good.
Good comedy moment related sort of to that is when Meryl Streep calls Mindy and she's like, "There's a spot for you on the ship," and he's like, "I think I'm good. I'm gonna stay with my family. You and Jason have a good time." She's like, "Who? Oh fuck
yeah, yeah.
I got a good laugh out of it.
Oh my gosh. Well. Oh, and then last one. My phone just purchased DJ Chell's latest album. It just did that by itself.
Oh,
I thought that was so funny. Because Apple did that with U2,
yeah.
but like it hasn't really happened otherwise.
No. And they didn't make it people purchase it. They just put it on people's devices.
Brandon, do you have any more grievances to air?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm good.
You said your piece?
I think I've said all.
And you accept it's a really good movie? Great. David?
Still at a 7.
I'm just kidding. If, respect to the Brandons of the world, okay?
Shout out.
You can think it's a bad movie, and that's okay.
It's true. You're allowed.
Come back next week, though, because we're going to be watching what?
Licorice Pizza.
Sounds disgusting.
It's probably fennel on pizza. Or delicious.
Depends on the liquor.
Hey, do you think it's fennel on pizza, and then someone says a line like, "This tastes like licorice pizza"?
Is there going to be a title? Yeah, title sequence. What do we say at the end? Hey, tweet at us.
At TJM Pod.
Yep. And
hello
at they'rejustmovies.com.
Oh.
I think so.
Yep. And subscribe, I guess.
Subscribe.
Watch Licorice Pizza before we do it next week.
Watch every single episode of They're Just Movies before next week.
Everyone catch up. Catch up on the lore.
Yeah. Our world building is insane.
The arc is completing.
The subtlety, buddy.
Yeah. And say bye-bye to Brandon.
See you later.
Bye.
Love you.